Good evening, everybody. We are back. It's the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe on Thursday, the first Thursday in August, the first Thursday of football season, the Thursday we've been waiting for since the Super Bowl, it seems. As we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports at large, plus a lot of football to get to tonight. But first of all, Nate, how you doing, man?
Hey, football's back. I'm doing great. The good news now is that football all year long. I mean, we got Super Bowl ends. You immediately have the Senior Bowl, and the East West Shrine Game and all those All-Star Game kind of things. And then you've got the Combine starts up right after those All-Star Games end, and then you got the Pro Days, and then you've got the draft, and then you've got spring practice, and you've got summer camp and OTAs, and then you got training camp starting up, and now we've got the Hall of Fame game, which to me, honestly, I know you hate Hall of Fames, but I love the NFL Hall of Fame, and I've always loved it. Just being from Ohio originally, my family, I've gone up there a bunch of times. I used to go to the induction ceremony every year. I still cry every year listening to the speeches, and used to go up to the game every year too. It was kind of cool seeing an NFL game production at a high school stadium. It's probably one of the few high school stadiums in the country that could host two NFL teams. But I'm fired up for it. I love the Hall of Fame weekend, and I love the Hall of Fame game because it signifies the start of football.
Well, I tell you, you're right. You're right. I am not a big Hall of Fame guy, and it's not really about the Hall of Fame per se. In fact, I give the Football Hall of Fame a lot more credit than the other Hall of Fames, because the Football Hall of Fame takes into effect a guy like Terrell Davis, a guy like Gale Sayers, great players that careers were cut short by injury and would have been Hall of Famers, but maybe never got the stat. So I give a lot of credit to them, and sometimes if it takes a long time, they get it right. Although there's a few players still out there that I'd love to see in the Hall of Fame. My whole problem is not so much the players, it's not so much the Hall of Fame, as much as the way sportscasters make everybody that's been in a league that's been great for 2 years a future Hall of Famer. Let's and Bill Parcells famously said it years ago. Let's push the brakes on Canton a little bit with some of these guys, because let's see what they really can do.
Hey, I'm with you on that. My point is that the NFL Hall of Fame, at least you've got to have some frickin' credentials.
You have to be one of the best players during your era. You
have
to
be one of the best players in the league, to get in, and you have to be one of the best players of all time at your position. We talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame all the time. It's garbage.
Right.
These guys that are getting in, I think about the careers of some of the people that have been voted in recently, and I'm like, God, that guy, I never would have imagined him, being
All-Star twice.
Yeah. All-Star twice, 270 batting average.
Yeah.
It's just like you used to have metrics. You used to have 3,000 hits. You had to bat over 300. You had to have 500 home runs. I mean, it used to mean something to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and now it means nothing.
It used to. The best saying I ever heard was, if you have to think about it, you're probably not a Hall of Famer.
That's a good point. I've heard that a lot. And you know what, too, is that the process is something to me that really separates the NFL Hall of Fame from all the other ones. The process that goes into not only inducting and getting the guys into Canton, but just narrowing it down and what those guys go through. I listened to the Hall of Fame show on Sirius XM radio that's head by Howard Balzer and Joe Horrigan, and two guys that have meant a lot to the Hall of Fame. And they talk about what goes in to breaking down whether a player is on the list or makes the list, and how they go about it. And it's very interesting to me. And these guys don't take it lightly, and they don't hold grudges like these baseball writers are like, oh, Barry Bonds was a dick to me, he's never getting in. And it's like, the football writers are like, or the football guys that that are in charge of voting these guys in or not, they don't give a crap whether the dude was nice to them or not. They look at their career and base it on their football career, which is what it's supposed to be about.
One of the most famous stories of all time about the baseball writers. One writer did not vote for Ted Williams. One, just one. It's like that is just ridiculous. That is just
well, and the crap about not voting anyone in as a first ballot Hall of Famer because that's never been done, or it's like, well, who cares if the guy should be a first ballot, then vote him in.
Right.
It's they hold on to these traditions, they hold on to these grudges, and they pretty much do what the things you shouldn't do if you're in charge of that kind of thing.
Before we get into everything we want to get into, we lost two people this week that were definite Hall of Famers and all-timers. First of all, Bill Russell, as a player, activist, and person, one of the greats of the NBA. We can go on and on. The old argument, the famous Rex Chapman argument. Rex, he would have been great in any era. I mean, he was that blessed. Shut up. And then Vin Scully, the longtime Dodger broadcaster. I can't say I was a big-time follower of Vin Scully, but I respected his work and what a great person and ambassador he was for the game. So those two people, they had great lives, and they got to do what they wanted to do, and they made an impact, they'll be lost or remembered, and their legacies are secure.
I agree 100%. One question I have for you is, why is Bill Russell never mentioned in the greatest player of all time competition? He's never mentioned in it. No one ever talks about it. People talk about Kareem. They talk about Jordan. They talk about LeBron. They talk about a lot of players, but they never talk about Bill Russell. I mean, I never saw him play, but when I look at the credentials, 11-time champion. I mean, that right there should put him in the argument. 5-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA first team, 8-time All-NBA second team, All-NBA defensive first team, 4-time rebounding champion. I mean, this guy had every credential that you could ever want, and it's just like, he's never talked about. Is because he wasn't really scoring wasn't his main thing. I mean, he averaged 15 points a game for his career, which isn't rebounds. But he averaged 23 rebounds. Yeah. I mean, Jesus. I mean,
and 8 block shots.
And 8 block shots and 4.5 assists.
Yeah.
So I mean if numbers were there, I don't get it.
I got to see. I can't say I saw really Russell at his best. I kind of remember in my mind seeing maybe his last game as a Celtic against the Lakers. I was a little kid then. I was just starting to know sports, so I can't tell you I saw a lot of Bill Russell. But even at that time, he was kind of the argument was him or Chamberlain.
Yeah,
and it's just one of those things where then you had Jabbar come along, and he dwarfs the sport for a decade or 20 years. And then you had guys like Moses Malone and Olajuwon, and you had Shaq, and you've had so many centers since then. And I think there is a disrespect for the era he played in. I think if you go back to that, and that's the problem. That's why Oscar Robertson is overlooked.
Yeah,
people sit there and go, well, Oscar Robertson did it in the 60s. Oscar Robertson was 6'4".
Yeah.
He was not a small man. He could shoot from the outside. He could do anything you wanted to do on the court. And if you don't think he would be great in this era, you're crazy. That's where the disrespect people don't understand is that if Bill Russell and Oscar Robertson and Wilt Chamberlain had been born in 1991, they still would be Hall of Fame basketball players.
Yeah.
They had those kind of skills. They were not. It wasn't just because they were big for their size or whatever. Yeah, there wasn't as great a player around. I mean, some of it had to do with the ABA and a lot of the great players going to the ABA and things like that. And the game was different back then, and played differently, played slower. And it just didn't have it. But they would have adjusted. They would have been just as good. And unfortunately, I think what Bill Russell gets is he gets the ultimate respect for his championships. People say he was surrounded by a lot of talent, which he was. But the one thing is He's surrounded by a lot of talent. It looks like that now, but nobody knew it then because they were all just starting to carve their niches as Hall of Fame players. So it wasn't like Kevin Durant going to the Golden State.
Yeah,
he helped those guys become Hall of Famers.
right.
So
And he made
crazy.
those guys better too. I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you take those guys and you remove Bill Russell from the equation. I mean, from the books I've read, from the tape I've seen, they ran, a lot of the offense through him. He was a key component in those championship teams.
When you look at just winning, back-to-back NCAA championships, Olympic gold medal, 11 out of 13 years in the NBA, he won the NBA championship. I mean, how can you top that
for winning? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what I was talking about. He's in the FIBA Hall of Fame. He's in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame as a player. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame as a coach. Like you said, gold medal winner in the 1956 Melbourne Games, NBA champion 11 times as a player, 2-time NBA champion as a coach. What the hell else do you want this guy to do?
I don't know. It's a shame that his name doesn't come up, but I do think that it is a disconnect because let's face facts. A lot of the guys who actually saw him and remembered him aren't really around anymore.
Yeah, that's probably. I'll give you that. That's probably one of the biggest reasons.
Right. I mean, if my father was here, he'd be telling you how great he was because he watched him. You know, and all the people of today only get to see him on grainy YouTube videos.
Yeah.
From the 50s and 60s, and even back then, they didn't have every game. You couldn't see every game, so a lot of it's lost. A lot of his best games are probably lost, can't be found.
Yeah.
So they'll never get to see that. And before we get into football, we have I know you mentioned me when we were looking at a thing to talk about this Brittany Griner thing that's going on, and she got sentenced today to 9 years over in Russia. And I really have a mixed bag of feelings about this, and I don't like the way it's being stonewalled into. Well, if LeBron was over there, we'd send the 5th Marines over to pick him to get him out.
Yeah,
I mean, look, two things. First of all, it's a shame that she is being prosecuted, and a lot of this is political. But the fact of the matter is, she went over there of her free will to play in a country that she knew was dangerous to play in. Why did she have that in her bag? It's not. I haven't heard anybody say it was planted.
No. She admitted that it was hers. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I looked up quickly online, and they said they estimated there's 40 or 50 people from the United States that are doing time around the world in prisons. And probably most of it is for kids who had a bag of weed on them or something like that and got caught at the airport or did something stupid in the country. And you know what? They're serving their time. Why is no one jumping up and down about them? I mean,
that is my point exactly. I mean, if this woman didn't play basketball and wasn't one of the best, I mean, just think she's one of the best women's basketball players there is in the WNBA. When she played in college, she led Baylor to the national championship. I mean, she's one of the best players, if not the best player in women's basketball. That's why we're talking about it. And then, because, of her sexual orientation and because she's African-American, then people are, pushing it as an agenda piece. But really, like you mentioned, what about all these other people that have been arrested in other countries for doing something stupid or doing something, maybe that they shouldn't have been doing? But certainly the punishments in those countries don't fit the crime.
No.
But that's what people take for granted in America, is that our justice system, although not perfect, is at least under the semblance of, close to being where it should be. Whereas, going to jail for 9 years because you had a Doja cartridge is absolutely ridiculous.
It is.
It's ridiculous, but that's what these other countries. That's what people don't understand when they're like, America's a joke. I hate America. I'm leaving it. I wish I didn't live here. Well, you know what? You get what you wish for sometimes, and it sucks in other places.
It's not like it's not well documented.
Yeah.
there's been movies about it. There's been documentaries about it.
There's a show that's called Locked Up Abroad.
Exactly. I used to watch that.
Yeah, I watched it too. It's a great show. But I'm just saying, that to me, just seeing those shows, reading the stories, seeing the headlines, that to me is enough to keep me from doing something like that. And once again, I'm not saying that what she did was horrible.
No.
Obviously, I don't think it is at all. I'm on her side. She
Right.
should be allowed to take Doja to Russia if she wants to. But I'm not a member of the Russian government. I'm not a member of the Russian police. You can't do something over there and expect the United States just to come bail you out. That's not how it works.
I mean, we don't want people coming in. Yeah, it's the same thing. When someone commits a crime over here, we don't want people coming in and telling us we can't prosecute them.
Exactly, and telling us how we, should prosecute someone or how our justice system should work. And this, she should know. First off, like I mentioned, she's a recognizable figure. She's almost 7 feet tall. She's got the long dreadlocks, braided hair. People know who she is. She didn't think that they were going to check her bag. They were just going to be like, oh, yeah, don't care about you. Yeah, right, man. I mean, they're going to make an example of you. They're trying to use this now. The Russian government is to get one of their people out of jail here, and they want to do a prisoner swap. And they're, I've heard I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard a lot of people talking that they want the Lord of War to be the prisoner swap. And like, no, you don't want to let that guy out. I mean, I certainly sympathize with her, but I don't think we should let that guy out of prison.
And far be it from me to sit there and say she a right to. She made a choice to go over there and play. Okay, I don't know how much she makes in her NBA or WNBA contract. I know it's not $40 million like Michael Westbrook or one of these guys. I understand that, but it's kind of because nobody watches the WNBA,
right?
And they don't have the contracts and they don't have the advertisers. They don't have the television networks clamoring to get them on, and it's the economics of it. But I'm sure her contract is not, $50,000 a year.
She makes a couple $100,000 for sure.
So I mean, did she have to go over there? Couldn't she have done something over here or gone to some other place that's maybe more friendly towards the United States? Is there an Australian league? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't even know either, but I know that she signed most recently, she signed a 3-year $664,000 contract, which to me, that's a shitload of money. That's almost 3/4 of $1 million.
And that's without any kind of,
that's no endorsements.
No endorsements, nothing like that. I mean, they've got to have women's basketball in Greece.
Oh, they do.
They've got to have women's basketball in Italy, Spain. I mean, why did you go to Russia? Why didn't you go to
because they pay the most? I believe it was once again the economics of it.
Then here's the thing: when you make that choice, you play by their rules.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
I'm sorry. I don't want to see her serve another second in prison. But there's a lot of guys. Look, I don't want to get this in a referendum on the American justice system, but there are a lot of guys that are serving time in jails around America that got caught with enough to be called a dealer, and when all they wanted to use it was for personal use, and they're doing 10 and 20 years. So,
oh yeah, it's very true. And the other thing, like we were just talking about, she signed a massive deal with Nike in 2013. After in 2012, she received the Best Female Athlete ESPY Award, and then in 2013 she signed a pretty huge deal with Nike. So it's not like she's poor. Everybody's like, oh well, if she made more money playing basketball in the United States, she wouldn't have to go over there. She makes a buttload of money playing in the United States, okay, and she makes a really good amount of money considering that the WNBA is not profitable. The reason that they're even continuing to exist is because they're supported by the NBA, and the NBA, pours money into it.
Right.
So, don't give me that. I certainly sympathize with her. I feel horrible for her. But, at the same time, this is a woman who,
She made
because
that choice.
she made that choice, and she also chose to protest, the playing of the national anthem, and has expressed her, outrage out of some of the things going on in the United States, which is her right as an
Yeah.
American citizen.
Yeah.
But I think she realizes that this country is a lot better than some people make it out to be.
Yeah, the thing is, that's why you have the right to do these things over here, and over there they don't.
You don't. You don't get a right to decide what you want to stand up for and stand up for. You stand up for some things over in Russia, and they lock you away and they throw the key in the whatever the hell the body of water is in Russia.
Yeah, if it was you or me, there wouldn't be nobody would even know
No,
we were there.
no one would care if I went to Moscow and I had some doja on my person and got arrested. No one would be calling for the Lord of War to be swapped for Nate Schmidt. No one would care.
Say
So
keep you, send them to the gulag.
they'd be like, string up that little Dutch boy, and who gives a shit?
Well, let's speak on the penalty. Let's get to football. The penalty, Deshaun Watson. We've been waiting for a year and a half. It seems the penalty finally came down. It's only 6 games, which to me is ridiculous, because that equates to what D Hop got for for
PEDs.
PEDs. So I mean, and if they want to sit there and okay, there's no film of it, but Ray Rice got thrown out of the league. It's somewhere between something more than D Hop and something maybe less than Ray Rice, but 6 games looks ridiculous.
Well, this has been going on, Joe, for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so you're sitting here telling me that this has been investigated, this has been blown up for 2 years. He basically, moved away from one franchise, couldn't be traded, handcuffed the Houston Texans because of this dealings. And it was about 6 games. You're telling me that if you would have told the Miami Dolphins that the suspension was going to be 6 games, they would have traded for him a year and a half ago.
Oh yeah,
and would have closed the door on the deal like that. Any of those teams that were interested in him, the Panthers. I mean, there was a number of teams that were in the Watson sweepstakes, and they would have slammed the door on the deal a long time ago if they would have known it was 6-game suspension. People were talking about an indefinite suspension from the league. And my favorite thing about this whole ordeal is, Roger Goodell was criticized a lot because he was the judge, jury, the executioner, where he would decide what the punishment was. He would carry out the punishment. He would be, he would make all the decisions. So he hires this third-party arbitrator to essentially hear both sides of the case, examine it, and then rule on it. Well, they do that, and Goodell doesn't like it because of the optics with the league and the way that it's perceived, nationally in the media. He doesn't like it. So now he's appealing it and wants it to be longer, and is given it to another attorney of his choosing to hopefully add games to this. And to me, it's like at this point, I just want it to be over. I don't care whether it's, I think it's ridiculous, but at this point, I don't give a shit. I just want it to be over. And now it's going to continue on even more because Roger isn't happy with the person he appointed to make the decision.
Right, and the whole thing is how far is this going to go out? When will it end? When will we know when Deshaun Watson will be back? Are we going to go another appeal if he doesn't get it what he wants? I do think the penalty is stupid. I think it's a stupid penalty. I think it's really obnoxious that he's going to get away with it. In a way, I wish that they would make him play for $1 million this year.
Yeah,
just so he wouldn't get his full money. He'd have to sit there just making $1 million because.
Well, he is making $1 million in his salary.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but the problem is that he's already got his signing bonus, which
I know.
Is millions and millions.
He made
of dollars.
What did he make? $17 million to sit out every game last year.
Yeah, they paid him $18 million to not play last year, which once again it was just so ridiculous.
It's funny how these guys can ruin their careers just by their own it's almost like a Brittany Griner here. These were his decisions.
Yeah.
He got involved with these masseuses, and he apparently tried to have his way with them. And here's a guy who came out of college with a great reputation, really well thought of, talented guy, good looking guy, looked like he was going to have the world at his feet. He was going to be Pat Mahomes' biggest rival for the next 20 years. And right now, he's like, half of America thinks he's a jackass.
Yeah, and maybe rightly so. But the whole point is, I think, just the way that all this has gone down, he hasn't really been punished, and he's not really being punished at all. No. So whether or not he did something wrong or not, we can argue that all night long. But I think we can all agree that he's not really being punished. I mean, yeah, he may have to sit out 6 games, but it's not going to hurt him financially. No. And he's already gotten paid last year to not even play because he didn't want to play for that team anymore. I mean, this is a guy who, to me, I've lost a lot of respect for. Yeah. Whether, regardless of the legal dealings, anybody that would just sit out and watch his team struggle the way they struggled last year and not give a shit. I mean, that I have a big problem with that.
Yeah, like I said, he's most of the people, when he came out of college, everybody had such a high opinion of him, and now he's blown that. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I just don't think he's.
That's the only thing that's really been harmed. Is his reputation and his image a little bit. But that's it. I mean, his pocketbook is just as fat as it'll ever be, and he's going to get to play this year. And I got to be honest, I'm cheering for the Browns to lose every game.
Right, I'm right up there with you.
I've already had, severe problems with the Browns before. I didn't like the way that they treated and handled Baker Mayfield after they drafted him number 1 overall and made him the talk of the town.
Public enemy number 1.
Yeah, now they completely turned on him and made him a public enemy. And then, I just remember back to the days when they drafted Tim Couch, the greatest quarterback that I ever saw play live as a high school player, and to be honest, one of the best I ever saw playing college.
At Kentucky.
Unbelievable. I mean, Kentucky
I thought he was going to be pretty good.
Kentucky was a horrible football program when he got there. And, he was winning 7, 8, 9 games a year for the Kentucky Wildcats, which at that time was unheard of. And the only problem he had was where he got drafted. He got drafted by the Browns. They were coming back from being an expansion team, basically. They were just picking the name back up because the Browns are actually the Ravens now, which no one ever talks about, but is true. And he just got the crap beat out of him. And I remember the game he got injured, like seriously injured. In fact, his career was never the same after it. And the Browns fans cheered as he was getting carted off the field, with his career in doubt. And, his physical well-being in doubt, and their fans are cheering because he's hurt. And I'm just like, I'm done with this team.
Yeah, hopefully karma keeps keeping them down. So
I hope so.
That's what we say about that. Let's take a look. Well, before we get into the Hall of Fame game tonight, let's take a look at the Hall of Fame players that are going in. Some well-deserving guys here. I kind of like this list, actually. Tony Baselli, I mean, I have no problems with him. One of the best offensive tackles of all time. Leroy Butler.
Tony is the one guy on this list that I think is being somewhat questioned, and not because of his ability, but just because of his career. He only played in 91 games total. He only played 7 years. His entire career was 7 years long, and that's because of injury. Yeah. And some people were like, this guy didn't even play for a decade. He sat out his rookie, a lot of his rookie season with an injury, and so he missed almost 2 years of his career due to injury, and he only really played 6 solid seasons. But he was very good in that time, and I don't have a problem with it. We've seen this before, like you mentioned earlier on in the show, with the running back Terrell Davis and some other examples where guys, if they were good enough at that time, he was voted to 5 straight Pro Bowls from '97 to 2001. He was on the All-Decade team of the '90s, even though he only played in half of the decade.
Right.
And he was picked as the team's most valuable player when they won the division title. So this guy was definitely, in my opinion, a Hall of Fame caliber player. It's just, I don't know, there's definitely some questions about whether or not he had a Hall of Fame career in some people's minds.
I mean, now here's where, when we were talking about when he was on the field, he was one of the 3 or 4 best at his position.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and his name, when he was playing, people didn't know when he was going to retire. When he was playing, when a name of an offensive tackle came up, Tony Baselli was right in the middle of it. So I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, the only people I can think of that played when he played that I could make a case were better is potentially Jonathan Ogden, out of UCLA and for the Baltimore Ravens, and potentially Walter Jones, who played for Florida State and the Seattle Seahawks. Those are the only 2 guys that I can think about that played at the same time that could arguably be better than him. And both of those guys are Hall of Famers.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think he belongs. Next, Leroy Butler. This is where it gets me. I mean, I think he was solid. But safeties are so tough to pick up. I mean, you played the position, you know better than me, so I'm going to turn on most of this over to you. But I mean, when you look at him, I mean, everything on defense starts talking about the cornerbacks. No one really watches the safeties. What's your opinion of Leroy Butler?
Yeah, I got to be honest. Leroy was one of my favorite players, especially, me, I'm a college guy first. I loved watching him play at Florida State. This guy was a true playmaker. He led the Packers in interceptions 5 times in his career. And he was a key member in those teams that, won 3 straight division titles. And he made it to the Super Bowl twice, winning one of them. In fact, he started on 3 consecutive NFC championship games and 2 straight Super Bowls. So this guy was one of the best defensive players on one of the best teams when he played. And you think about that year they won the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, actually. He had 7 tackles and a sack, made some good plays in that game. And he intercepted at least 1 pass every year that he played, except for his last season. So I've got to say that, I think safeties do get overlooked sometimes, but this guy was an All-Pro 4 times. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler, and, I think definitely right up there. I mean, I think it's questionable. I think you could say, some people might say that there's people that should get in before him, but, he's been waiting for 16 years to get in. So I think he definitely has a case.
And next, Sam Mills. I'm not going to dispute Sam Mills. He was a great middle linebacker, and we're not going to see many middle linebackers make the NFL Hall of Fame anymore because there aren't that many around it. With the advent of different defensive packages, the run stopping or all down defensive middle linebackers don't exist. The only thing that the Sam Mills thing brings up to me, and I'm not saying this just because you're an Ohio guy, but if Sam Mills is in, why not Randy Gradishar?
Yeah, no, I have made the case for Randy a lot, but I'm not going to take away what Sam did because I would want Randy to be in. I mean, this guy, not only did he play a position that doesn't really get that much acclaim, but this guy was 5'9", maybe. And, I remember him mainly for the Carolina Panthers just because of my age. I remember seeing him kind of at the end of his career, and this guy was still a badass, even at the end of his career playing for the Panthers. I mean, he led that team to the 1996 NFC Championship game and was just all over the field. And that group of linebackers in New Orleans, Ricky Jackson and all those dudes. That might be one of the greatest group of linebackers of all time. I think the only one that I can make a case that might be better is your New York Giants there, with all
Yeah.
those guys, Carl Banks and Lawrence Taylor and
There
all those guys.
was that, and then you have to give the Bears of the Dick's Bears with Singletary and Wilbur Marshall and those guys were really really good too. So, but yeah, you're right in there. I mean, those were the best of. You're not going to get any better than that.
No, and also not only was he maybe 5'9", but this guy came out of Montclair State.
Yeah.
I mean, give me another player from Montclair State that's in the NFL Hall of Fame. I don't think you'll find one.
No, and he had to work his way into the NFL. I mean, he had to go to he got cut in Canada,
Yep.
went and played the USFL,
Yep.
played for the Stars, the best team probably that played in the USFL.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, that was probably the only team that could have come over and competed in the NFL.
Yeah.
But and then he makes his way to the Saints into Carolina. And then we got Richard Seymour. A lot of respect for Richard Seymour. The thing about Richard Seymour is it's a typical Patriot thing. You know, he was part of a good team defense, but he stood out, and he was a great player.
Oh yeah, this guy was a difference maker everywhere he played, and I got to see him in person when he played at Georgia, and he really stuck out. This usually defensive tackles are just not the first thing you notice. I mean, most people watch the ball, and they watch the skill players and the guys that are handling the ball. That's not how I watch football, but that's how most people watch football.
Yeah.
But I just remember him really standing out at Georgia and also with the Patriots. I mean, this guy, there's definitely a reason why those teams that he played on were always successful. It wasn't just because, he wasn't just lucky to be on great teams. I mean, he was a big part of it. The Patriots won 10 or more wins 7 times during his 8 years with the team. He actually led the Patriots in sacks twice as a defensive tackle. He had 8 sacks in 2008 and amassed almost 60 sacks for his career. That's pretty amazing for a defensive tackle. And he played in 4 Super Bowls. He won 3 of them. This guy was a winner, and this guy was a dominator on the defensive line.
Yeah, definitely. Then we go to Bryant Young. He played for the 49ers. Great player. I mean, I don't know. I don't mind him being in the Hall of Fame. Not one of my big time name guys. Bryant Young. I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody that comes to mind that I think should be in there instead of him, and I really can't think of any that comes to mind. But what do you think about Bryant Young?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, if I had to pick between Bryant Young and Richard Seymour, I'd probably take Richard Seymour, honestly. But this guy was no slouch. I mean, he was on winning teams, in San Francisco, and he was one of the reasons that their defensive lines were so good, and had a great career. I mean, this guy just dominated for so many years, and came out of Notre Dame and was a first-round pick. And a lot of times, guys that get picked that high, the bust factor weighs heavily on their shoulders. But he handled that as not many people can, and took it all the way to the Super Bowl. So I don't really have a problem with him being there, but there's probably some people that may be that might deserve it possibly a little bit more than him.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you there. A little bit on the fence about that.
Yeah.
Next, Cliff Branch. Cliff Branch was a great money player, great player for on 2 Super Bowl winning teams. He was the speed, while Bolitnikoff on the other side was the possession receiver. They had Dave Casper, which was a great tight end. It was back when they didn't go to 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. It was back in the day of bump and run, and he was a smallish guy out of Colorado who made an impact, especially in the biggest games, which I give him a lot of credit for. But I don't know why Otis Taylor is still not in the Hall of Fame. I got to see the tail end of Otis Taylor's career with Kansas City, and he was better than Cliff Branch.
Yeah.
And he was one of the best players in the old AFL, and one of the best reasons he was one of those guys that kind of helped force the merger. And him still not being in the Hall of Fame is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should probably dedicate some time to go over, a list of guys that we both believe should be in that maybe aren't. But, like I mentioned, I do have a lot of respect for these guys that make it because I know what goes into it. I mean, they don't take this. These guys don't take it lightly. They work it out and they discuss these things in depth. And there's a lot of different factors that go into choosing these guys. And obviously team success comes into it. And you think about it, 3 Super Bowl victories, just like Richard Seymour. I mean, there's a reason he's in the Hall of Fame. He helped his team to the highest level 3 different times. So did Cliff Branch. I mean, he was one of the best receivers on one of the best teams for 14 years. And, I do like that not only do his numbers not really compare with the guys these days, but I like the fact that they looked past that and thought about, in his day, he was one of the best wideouts, out there. And that's why he's getting the nod into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing. That's another thing. Like when we were talking about Bill Russell, you had to watch how they played back then. I mean, he was in on every down. He had to block a lot. There weren't 4 and 5 man sets. They didn't use the tree. I mean, whatever they called in the huddle, you did.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you read the defense. And back then, the defenders were allowed to be a lot more physical. They weren't. And I'm not saying that the guys aren't physical today. You have to be physical, no matter what they say. I mean, you got to give the cornerbacks and the wide receivers a little bit of physicality. You can't be sitting there going, can't touch each other, because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You got to get separation somehow. But back then, you could really get beat up by these guys.
There's no doubt.
And Art McNally, Hall of Fame referee. Okay, got it. He was a referee for a long period of time. Got it. No problem.
Yeah, don't care.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has an opinion on that, forget it. Next is Dick Vermeil. And here's one of my hated but respected coaches. I loved Dick Vermeil when he was with UCLA because actually I loved he pulled up one of the great upsets of all time over your Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And I had a great deal of respect for him. And then he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles and he helps, in a way, he came to town and helped the Giants figure out that they finally had to do something about how bad they were. Because at least, they used to have the Eagles and them on the bottom rung of the NFC East. And they could say, well, at least we have company. But once Dick Vermeil got to Philadelphia, Philadelphia became a championship-type team. I mean, he turned Ron Jaworski into a championship-level quarterback, and that wasn't easy.
Yeah, you should get in the Hall of Fame just for that.
Yeah, and I mean, and then, he goes out and, comes back and becomes the Rams head coach after, retiring from burnout for a few years, turns that team into a championship team. Then he got forced out ridiculously.
Yeah.
For Mike Martz. That will go down. And I have a good friend of mine who's a huge LA fan or Ram fan, I should say. And he'll tell you it was the worst decision in Ram history because Vermeil showed it when he went to Kansas City. He had a lot of coaching left in him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And my, I love Dick Vermeil for some reason. I mean, I hate the fact he beat the Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl, but I love this guy. Just the energy, the passion, the love that this guy not only has for the game, but the love that he has for his players. I mean, talk that if you listen to any of the players that played for him in college and the pros, junior college, whatever, if you talk to anyone that he ever coached, they all love him. And they all
treat him like human beings.
Yeah, and they all knew how much he loved them. I mean, he was hard on them. He was a coach that was hard, and he would expect a lot of you, but he also loved you and would express his love for you. And I just love this guy. How he started out as a high school coach,
right?
And then he went to a junior college, and then he became an assistant at Stanford, and then then he started as a special teams coach for George Allen with the Rams, and then the rest is history. But I just love this guy, man. I think he's kind of underrated as far as his coaching acumen. I mean, you take him away from those Rams teams, and you never have the greatest show on turf. So
Right.
I really think he's actually underrated for how great he was.
Yeah, I think the talent overshadows that he's the guy. He was the architect who put it together.
Yeah,
I
no one
mean,
knew who the hell Kurt Warner was before he found him.
well, I mean, Mike Martz did not exactly have wasn't known as an offensive genius before, Vermeil plucked him out of somewhere and plugged him in as the offensive coordinator and gave him first of all, the weapons and the freedom to design plays that no one had ever seen before.
Yeah, and orchestrating that trade for Marshall Faulk, hell, he should get in the NFL Hall of Fame just for that. What that guy meant to that team, and the way that he developed wide receivers, Isaac Bruce and the boys. I got a lot of respect for Dick Vermeil and just the way that he kind of had three separate careers. With broadcasting, with coaching in college, with coaching in the pros, and actually maybe four because he did, coached in the NFL multiple times.
And I understand he produces a great bottle of wine too.
Yeah, he's got a nice vineyard out in California. So this guy's successful at everything that he does.
Think one of his lives.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, he's been a great high school coach, a great college coach, a great junior college coach, a great pro coach, a great broadcaster, a great vineyard owner. I'm like, can I just do something good? Makes me feel terrible about my life.
Just give me 1/5 of what you've done. I'll be fine.
No
doubt. Yeah, so I have no problem with that. The class right now. The only thing, like I said, I'm still waiting for Otis Taylor to get in. I didn't look at what's available for next year. We can do that at a later date and see who's on here. But it can't be as bad as the Baseball Hall of Fame guys that are on for next year.
Oh, God, horrible. No, I don't even want to talk about it. But, it's not one of the greatest classes of all time. It doesn't have like that one guy that kind of stands out above the rest that everyone's kind of been waiting to get in, or that first ballot guy that everybody's, excited about. It doesn't have that kind of glitter around it.
Right.
But these are all guys that I think are worth it. And a lot of these guys have been waiting for a long time to get in. The only thing that's really sad to me is that, Sam Mills isn't here to go in. That really upsets me when these guys make it to the Hall of Fame and they've already passed on and don't even get to enjoy it.
That's the worst thing about football. A lot of those guys don't make it because I know, you don't want to blame the sport, but it is a tough sport. It's tough on their bodies. Yeah. And, it's something that wears on them. And a lot of them don't make it, which is a shame.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, we got about 10 minutes left. So let's talk about the game tonight where we have the Panthers against the Raiders.
No, it's the Jaguars.
Jaguars. I'm sorry. I always get
Jaguars
screwed up.
Yeah.
All right.
Jaguars.
So we got the Jaguars. We christened the Doug Peterson era. We're probably not going to see much of Trevor Lawrence, if at all.
No, I don't think he's playing.
I don't. What exactly are you going to be looking for out of this game tonight? Because it's going to be basically rookies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to take a look at the Jaguars themselves because I just want to see, is there any talent out in the field? I mean, that's the one thing we can say about the roster. I mean, I don't give a crap who the coach is over the last 4 or 5, 6, 7 years in Jacksonville. It hasn't really mattered. I mean, I know they love jumping on Urban Meyer's back, but good God, it didn't really matter who the coach of that team was last year.
Right.
No one was winning any games. They had nobody good on that whole roster. And I look at it this year and, there's a little bit more explosiveness on offense. My one thing I really want to see, I doubt he'll play tonight, but I want to see Travis Etienne. I mean,
I was going to ask you about that.
Is that guy injury out there? Is he back to 100%? Is he going to be able to help this team at all? Because they really need somebody. I mean, James Robinson's a good running back, but he's not that home run threat that Travis Etienne was when he played at Clemson. So, and they've got Christian Kirk too, who, isn't the greatest wide receiver and is probably the most overpaid player in the NFL right now. But at the same time, he's a burner. And the reason they went out and got him was they wanted somebody that could take the top off the defense, and he is a dude that can do that. So, is the talent level better? That's what I want to see out of this team. Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk, wide receiver core, Laviska Shenault. Those guys should be a little bit better. Can Evan Ingram catch the football? Want to see that. The guy's definitely talented.
I hope not, because that would break my heart.
I don't know, but I mean, you can't say that the guy wasn't talented. I mean,
physically, no. I mean, he's just got alligator arms.
He just couldn't catch the
He's got alligator arms. I'll never forget a couple of years ago. I mean, I think it was against Philadelphia. All he had to do was reach out 2 more feet, and he would have had it, and he would have had a first down and maybe run out the clock. But when you go back to ETN, how about his experience with Trevor Lawrence? As the fact of the matter, they played together at Clemson for like outlet passes, that kind of communication. Do you think that'll come into play if he's healthy?
It definitely won't hurt. My main thing is, obviously a level of comfortability is good, but my main thing is just that they need somebody that can get some big time plays. I mean, they've got a couple guys that can catch a 6-yard out, but can they get like somebody that can break it and bust a 35-yard touchdown, a 40-yard touchdown, those big chunk plays? And Travis Etienne, like I mentioned, is a dude that can do that if he's healthy. So I think that him being out there might make Trevor more comfortable. I definitely think Trevor takes a step forward because he's a guy that wants it. He wants to be great. He wants to be good. I know he'll put the work in. So I think he will be better this year, but he's only going to go as far as this team takes him. And I just don't know how good this roster is looking at it from top to bottom.
And on the other side, we start the Josh McDaniel era. Like we said, we're going to see rookies on that side too. We're not going to see any of their regular players. Josh McDaniel, is there anything you're going to look for in his coaching? Any kind of maybe the way his team approaches it, penalties, things like that? Are you going to look at to see if he's got the team maybe more disciplined? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see what his offensive scheme looks like. I mean, does he draw upon what he's done in New England over the past decade or so, and build on the scheme that he's been operating in for so long, or does it look different? That's what I'm most interested to see from this Raiders team. And obviously tonight's not going to give us a real glimpse into that. But as the preseason goes on, and the starters are out there, I want to see what that offense looks like. Is this a team that really predicates itself on the run like the New England team has, or is this a team that really opens it up and slings it around? I mean, they've got Derek Carr, they've got Devontae Adams, they've got Hunter Renfrow, they've got Darren Waller. This is a team that historically has thrown the ball quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, I'm interested to see whether he plays with a wide open gun-slinging type of offense. That's interesting to me.
And the other thing about it is it would be a shame if he didn't get more wide open, because you're playing inside in Vegas. Why? I understand a lot of times in New England, the weather predicated how you're going to approach it. I mean, once it got to be late October, you got the winds of New England and sometimes snow and rain and that kind of stuff. So you don't want the quarterback throwing the ball all over the lot.
Yeah, but here I think they went out and got Devontae Adams for a reason.
Yeah.
They haven't really had. Tell me the last time the Raiders had a number 1 wide receiver. Tim Brown. Tim Brown's been retired for 10 years, bro. So think about it.
Only 10 years.
10 plus years.
Yeah.
They haven't had a number 1 guy out there. I know Randy Moss was out there for a while, but he didn't
have anybody throw to him. I mean, the last time, you're right. The last time they had a number 1 weapon at wide receiver was Tim Brown.
And they finally went out and got one. And Devontae Adams is hands down probably the best wide receiver in this league. And we'll see if he can continue those staggering numbers that he put up in Green Bay. With this new team, but I'm interested to see what the Raiders look like. I mean, the coach coaching situation last year in Las Vegas was obviously a mess with the whole John Gruden fiasco, and the interim staff did a tremendous job and got fired for it, but they definitely did a tremendous job. But I think it's going to look different with Josh McDaniels, and hopefully, he takes advantage of his second opportunity as a head guy and hangs on to it.
Now, I tell you one thing, I don't think I'll tell you what, I respect him for one thing. He kind of had his choice of where he wanted to go, and he went to the hardest division of football.
That's true. That's true.
So,
but
I mean,
he could have gone somewhere else. But if you think, man, remember he was offered the job in Indianapolis, and
Right.
he agreed to take it. And then as they were scheduling the press conference, he went back on it and pulled himself out of it. And I would love to hear the reasoning behind that, because I don't think we've ever really heard the whole story on that.
No.
But it's his career, and I really feel like he's had opportunities to go somewhere, and he sat back and waited for the opportunity he felt was right. So you better make it happen now, because he's burned some bridges, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
The Colts aren't going to call his ass again.
No, not at all. Along with other teams aren't going to call his ass. Before we go out, a couple of cleaning house measures between you and me. You can come up with one or two. I can come up with one or two. Today I heard Michael Irvin says that he thinks Trey Lance is going to have a great year.
Thanks, Michael.
What has he seen? Michael Irvin's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He knows more about football than I know, just because of his experience and everything. He's been around the game for 30 years at a high level. But I don't understand how anybody can – he hasn't even thrown a preseason ball this year. And I just don't get how people are saying Trey Lance, Trey Lance, Trey Lance, Trey Lance. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think – let's be honest. I mean, Shanahan's offense is – going to work. I mean, this guy is very inventive on how he structures his offensive scheme, and they're able to get yards in chunks. They're able to get big plays by the way that he, runs plays to set up other plays. There's really a method to his madness. So I think maybe Michael's saying that Trey's going to have success because of the team that he's on, because of the coach that he has. But can you just sit here and tell me that you've watched him play in those two games and you know that he's going to tear the NFL up because of those two starts? I mean, I'm not buying that.
And the other thing is, remember, Shanahan's offense worked with two quarterbacks really running it. Matt Ryan down in Atlanta and Jimmy G.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, Nick Mullins had maybe a week or two. C.J. Beathard had maybe a week or two. But their weaknesses showed through eventually.
True.
So, I mean, eventually the quarterback has to put up or shut up.
That's true.
And the thing is, his offense, like I said, it does work when you got Matt Ryan or you got Jimmy G. Jimmy G is not Matt Ryan, but, he was trained well in New England, so he kind of knows what he's looking at.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't have the strongest of arms. So, we'll see.
Well, we'll see. I mean, my thing is, it's Trey Lance or bust. I mean, they've made the decision to basically move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just don't really think you can't put Jimmy Garoppolo in the game if Trey Lance struggles. Let's say that they're holding on to Garoppolo at this point to wait and see if somebody goes down with injury and his value goes up. As trade value goes up, maybe they're going to wait on that. But you can't sit there and say, "Oh, Trey's struggling. Let's put Jimmy in." You can't do that, because if Jimmy has a big game, you can't. You're gonna wreck the other guy's confidence, and all the guys on the team are going to be like, "What the hell are we doing?" So they got themselves in a rough situation, in my opinion.
Right now, there's a very high potential, if Matt Stafford stays healthy, that the Rams win that division by 7 games.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the Cardinals do. I'm not buying the Cardinals right now.
I'm not buying the Cardinals right now. Seattle is just a mess.
Well,
they have nobody.
The offseason up in Seattle, to me, has just been a damn mystery. I mean, what the hell are they doing? They get rid of Russ. They bring in nobody to replace him. They signed the wide receiver to a big extension after he underperforms last year. And then they let their team leader, Bobby Wagner, walk. I mean,
to the Rams.
And go to their biggest rival. I mean, I just don't really know what they're doing in Seattle right now, but I'm with you. I'm not buying the Seahawks and I'm not buying the Cardinals at all. And I'm certainly not really high on the Niners either. So I think the Rams are going to run away with that one.
I have a total agreement. So what we got on man coverage this week?
I believe I got a confirmation email today from Brian Roll. So I'm really hoping that Brian's going to make it. Brian Roll is one of the best high school football players in the state of Florida, coming out of high school, and then he signed to play at Ohio State. Was a team captain for the Buckeyes, and then he played in the NFL for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then he played in Canada for Toronto. Dude is just a baller, kind of an undersized linebacker, but was just an absolute baller on the football field. And he talked to him today, so he said he was going to try and make it and be on the show. So hopefully we'll be able to solidify that and get him in on Sunday's man coverage show, because we want to bring him on and talk to him a little bit about what's going on.
All right. Well, that's it for us tonight. We'll be back next week. Everybody enjoy football being back. Thank God. And let's keep this going, and we will see you all next week. Take it easy, Nate.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.